Hello everyone, I'm going to be talking about the first prompt. I'm a first grade teacher and I have students that are struggling with this geometry standard of partition circles and rectangles into 2s and 4 equal shapes, shares, described using shares using halves, fours, quarters, and use the phrases half and fours, fourth of and quarter of. Describe the whole as 2 of 4 of the shares. So, I'm a first grade teacher and my students are struggling with shapes. So, I'm going to use the figure on page 511. And this figure, basically, it's a great example of decomposing shapes. And it is talking about letter squares that we are talking about. Right here. So, I would have my students draw me a rectangle. From that rectangle, I want them to try to see if they can make half of a triangle. If the students are getting the line down in the middle, we'll make our rectangles in different sizes. And if my students are understanding the what's half of a triangle, they should know a half of a triangle is a square. 2 squares put together makes a triangle. If I'm saying triangle, I'm sorry. If putting 2 squares together makes a rectangle. Awesome. So we're doing a half of a rectangle, and a half of a rectangle is what? A square. So if we have one square and we have another square, what happens if we put 2 squares together? It makes a rectangle. Now, if they are wanting to do a quarter of, having the students draw a square, let's draw a circle. We'll do the same thing for the circle for a half of. Which, a way that I could describe a half of a circle is 2 moons coming together. Their backs are facing each other, hitting to make a full circle. Now, doing a quarter of a circle in a square and of a rectangle, have them draw them out and have the students have it separated into the equal parts. See if they understand what the equal parts will look like and how many lines they are. The same thing would go with the circle and then the fourth of, which the fourth of is creating 4 lines. That's each holds a fourth of that spot. And when it's a circle, it's basically a line down the middle and a line down the middle this way. Vertical and horizontal. Moving on. The way that I would have my students start to learn these shapes is playing with the shapes. First grade is basically about, for me, my understanding of first grade is them seeing the shapes and breaking them down to see what they can make into the shapes. So a great activity, I think it's a great activity, is getting a huge piece of paper, having a piece of paper, having those little shapes of blocks or even like having that piece of paper laminated and then have the kids get to draw on it with a expo marker. They'll have a blast with that. Of just breaking it down into using the half of, quarter of, fourth of, all that jazz. Another way is playing a game with the shapes. Having a huge, make like a build me kind of circle and square and even rectangle, even square, and all the other shapes. Of just like having the students try to put it together and understanding this is 1/8, this is 1/4, this is 1/3, this is 1/2. My final one would be using different color using blocks and see what they could make out of that block, and saying like this is 1/2 of this square, 1/2 of this rectangle, this is 1/2 of this circle. Just little things that could help the students understand and like see, because they need to see visually, because they're not going to understand. They're not going to be able to write 1/4 and one. They'll write it, but they won't understand it. So it's the best way, in my opinion, of being like a first grade teacher, is having them do it visually, because visually is going to help them more to understand and be able to take away and putting back and moving their things around. It's making them question their ability and knowledge, and really using their brain and asking these questions over and over and over in their head of what they need to be doing and what this actually really means.